Good afternoon. Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network. I'm Matthew Alvarez. At 3 o'clock, there's a White House press briefing held by Secretary of State Marco Rubio as the great Carolyn Leavitt is on maternity leave. But let's begin our broadcast with the latest on America's Mayor Rudy Giuliani, as over the weekend he was in critical condition at the hospital. But let's get the latest update from his spokesperson, Ted Goodman.
The September 11th, 2001, as so many of us so vividly remember, Mayor Rudy Giuliani ran toward the towers to help those in need. This led to a diagnosis of a restrictive airway disease. He's now breathing on his own with his family and primary medical care provider at his side. Mayor Giuliani is the ultimate fighter. This is something he's demonstrated time and time again throughout his life, and he's going to win this fight. His family deeply appreciates the outpouring of love and support. The mayor believes in the power of prayer, and we're feeling that. Today. He remains in critical but stable condition. Stay tuned for additional updates as we can provide them, and please keep the mayor in your prayers. They are helping in a big way, and we feel it. God bless America, and God bless America's mayor, Rudy Giuliani.
Good to hear he's in critical but stable condition, and looking good is the quote that I received from Ted just yesterday. So it looks like things are progressing. Always good to see that. Meantime, in a video that's circulating online, State Senator Rob Sampson, a Republican out of Connecticut, recently called out Democrats for attacking homeschoolers.
The family is not a department of the government. Parents are not subjects, they are citizens. And they do not need the permission of this state government or anyone in this room to educate their own children. Thank you, Madam President.
It's all about freedom, isn't it? If you want to homeschool your kids, you should easily be able to do that with no problem from government. And if you want to take your kid to any kind of school, really. So great to see that there in Connecticut. Of all places, we know that the governor there just yesterday signed a new law for Connecticut that ICE agents aren't allowed to wear masks any longer. Not a lot of common sense on that end, but definitely there was some common sense by that state rep, going against the Democrats trying to come against people that want to homeschool their kids. Let's go now to Secretary of War Pete Hegseth as the Pentagon highlights a ceremony that was held there just yesterday, clip number 3.
The two heroes before us today, their particular story culminates on the corner of 17th and I Streets in our nation's capital. These guardsmen, then and today, made our capital safe. Major Reynolds and Stanfield, you are the essence of what General Patton called, quote, the real hero.
Major Ryan Reynolds advanced towards active gunfire to assist wounded service members. Without regard for personal safety, he subdued the attacker, allowing first responders to render life-saving aid. Major Stanfield took actions to subdue the assailant, then worked in concert with local law enforcement to secure the scene, maintain casualty care, and ensure the orderly arrival of emergency medical services.
In memory of Specialist Sarah Beckstrom, I'd like to do a moment of silent prayer. She is not forgotten today. She's not forgotten any day. And it is her memory that stiffens our resolve each and every day. And then Andy, one day I'm looking down at him in a hospital bed. The next day I'm looking up, he's throwing out the first pitch. These heroes are part of humanity's oldest story. Good versus evil. Courage versus cowardice. Fight versus flight. They chose good that day.
That event just taking place yesterday at the Pentagon with the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth. Meantime, outside on the South Lawn of the White House, we'll be getting to some of that video in a bit. President Trump out there after signing that proclamation all about athletes in America and sports, and we'll talk more about that in just a minute. So let's go from the president, actually from the Secretary of War to the president to the vice president. He is in, I was going to say Iowa and Ohio. He's in both of those states today. I mixed both states together, and that's whatever just came out of my mouth. So the vice president in Ohio and Iowa today. Let's take a look at a video from Rapid Response 47, where the vice president voting in today's Ohio primary, clip number 4.
Well, it'll be very quick, buddy. We're very, very quick. Hello. Good morning. Hello. Good morning. Hi, guys. Good morning. Good morning, guys. How we doing? Good to see you guys. You can turn it in there. Okay. I have to hide it from the reporters. I don't want them to know who I voted for. Okay, buddy. Does it matter which side I put it in? Yeah. Can I see yours, buddy? You get to take a sticker. Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. Now I want to show everybody. You want another sticker, buddy? So look, he voted for the Easter Bunny or the Tooth Fairy, which is a risky choice because he's got a loose tooth. So that's a man of principle. Thank you all for working here.
So the vice president earlier today in his home state of Ohio, probably near Middletown, Ohio, where he's from. I remember we covered an event there prior to, or actually after President Trump's event in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Then there was another event for the vice president in his hometown of Ohio. So he was just there in that town. Now he goes on to a speech in Ohio, and then he goes to Iowa for another speech, and then he'll head back to Washington, D.C. Meantime, let's check out a new video from the White House regarding the country of Venezuela.
The first time since 2019, direct flights from the U.S. to Venezuela are back in the air.
This flight marks the transition from dialogue to action.
We are committed to a U.S.-aligned Venezuela that produces real results for Venezuelans and for Americans.
Under the leadership of the president, we've moved at lightning speed to get all the things in place we needed to do to establish air service.
We are witnessing the rebuilding of our economic ties, the reopening of Venezuela to global commerce, and the reconnecting of our two countries.
President Trump is a man of action, and what you're seeing today is action take place.
Under President Trump's leadership, the United States remains fully committed to Venezuela's economic recovery. Today, the results speak for themselves. Direct flights are back. Commerce is flowing. Venezuela's economic engine is ramping up, and we're just getting started.
All right, so you saw that there with American Airlines and travel to Caracas, Venezuela. But also, I saw something on X earlier. It was pretty interesting to see. It said Spirit X, and it was a black airplane with the name Spirit and X, and people saying Elon should take over Spirit Airlines and just call it Spirit X and make a whole new airline out of it. Thought that was pretty interesting. Let's go to a few of our sponsors before we move on with more of our broadcast as we get ready to see the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, host and run the White House press briefing. Of course, as the great Carolyn Leavitt is on maternity leave. So we'll see that around the top of the hour when we see the Secretary of State. Let's go to a few of our sponsors in the meantime, including All Family Pharmacy. You know, specifically when it comes to healthcare, people are looking for something simple, access, control, and peace of mind. And right now, that's not always easy to get. You've probably experienced it, those long wait times or packed waiting rooms, dealing with insurance and still not getting what you need when you need it. That's why more Americans are turning to All Family Pharmacy. They've built a system that's simple, safe, and secure. It's simple because you go online, you choose what you need, and fill out a short medical form. It's safe. A licensed doctor reviews your request and prescribes if appropriate. And it's secure. Your information and transactions are protected from start to finish. And they offer access to more than 400 prescription medications, from everyday maintenance medications to antibiotics, antivirals, ivermectin, mebendazole, NAD+, and more, all shipped directly to your door. No confusion, no delays, just a better way to get what you need. Go to allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN and use code RSBN10 to save 10%. Again, that's allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. Great sponsor here at Right Side. A great American independent pharmacy right there, All Family Pharmacy. With Birch Gold Group, when there are supply constraints on commodities, prices surge. You saw it with the fuel prices as the Strait of Hormuz was blockaded. And you know what else is a limited commodity? Gold. They mine it out of the ground, of course, and when it's gone, it's gone. Governments can't just print more of it. And that's why everyone from central banks to savvy savers are diversified with gold. Now, if you've been thinking about it for years but have still never moved some of your savings into physical gold, Birch Gold Group is who we trust to help you. Now, through May 29th, Birch Gold is giving first-time gold buyers a rebate of up to $10,000 on qualifying purchases. So for details and a free info kit on diversifying into gold, all you have to do is what you see right there. Text Trump to 989898. Birch Gold can help you convert an existing IRA or 401k into a tax-sheltered IRA in physical gold. Just text the number Trump. Text the name Trump to the number 989898 to see if you qualify for a first-time gold buyer rebate of up to $10,000. Again, text Trump to 989898. All right, we are at 2:10 Eastern Time. Thank you again for joining us here on Right Side, getting ready to see the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, as he is going to be holding the press conference coming up at about 3 o'clock. Now, new video from the U.S. Department of Transportation as it builds big, beautiful infrastructure again, along with strengthening America's supply chains. Let's take a look at clip number 6.
Today, we're taking a monumental step in transforming this site at Coke Point into a state-of-the-art container terminal. We are standing on the grounds of what once was the largest steelmaking facility in the world, a true cornerstone of American manufacturing. Rebuilding our nation's infrastructure is a top priority of this administration. The Sparrows Point Container Terminal is a perfect example of what robust private-public partnership can achieve. This facility will strengthen America's supply chains, expand domestic cargo capacity on the East Coast, and dramatically reduce our dependence on overburdened port infrastructure.
All right, so let's return to the White House in case you missed it, as the president fielded questions from the press after this morning's presidential proclamation signing. Let's go to clip 7.
Can I ask you about Iran, Mr. President?
Yes.
They've fired at U.S. ships several times in the last 24 hours. What do they need to do to violate the ceasefire?
Well, you'll find out, because I'll let you know. They know what to do, and they know what to do. They know what not to do, more importantly, actually. And, they fired them in little boats with pea shooters, the pea shooters, little boat with little, why? Because they don't have any boats anymore. The Navy is comprised of, they call them little boats, fast right? Boats or little boats. And they're fast, yeah. They're so fast that they had 8 of them and they're all gone. And they're fast, but they're not fast like a missile. A missile is slightly faster. They're all gone, so they're looking around for little boats to try and compete with our great Navy. We have a Navy that's unbelievable. We set up a blockade, as you know very well. Not one ship. A couple tried, and they got their engine shut out. You remember? I think it was it was a great display. A ship wanted to go through, break the blockade. They were warned not to. And then they were warned again by a young Annapolis captain of the ship with a great look, central casting. These people are central casting, I'll tell you. And he said, don't do it. Then he said, evacuate your engine room with this unbelievable loudspeaker that goes over water. He said, you have 10 seconds. And then from 4 miles with one bullet, it went right into the engine. And Gary, the ship stopped very quickly. They hit the engine with one shot. It wasn't a missile. They don't want to waste a missile on it. It's too easy. And we had another one at 2000, one of the biggest ships in the world. They were warned, and he said, go back now, go back right now. You will be shot at within 10 seconds. Yes, yes, I am going back to Iran. I am going back. And that was the end of that, right? He went. It took him 10 miles to turn. The ship was so big, but they respect us. They didn't used to respect us, but they respect us more than we've ever been respected. Our country now is the hottest country anywhere in the world. We had a country that was dead when we had that group of people that ran this country with their open borders, letting anybody come in from the Congo, from countries all over the world. They came in from prisons and mental institutions. We had a country that would have been a dead, if they won the election, this country would have been a dead country. Now we have the hottest country anywhere in the world. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. You said recently that if Iranians were armed, they could take over their regime. Do you plan to arm them soon?
Well, I don't want to say that, but yeah, I mean, people say, why aren't they protesting? They want to protest, but they don't have any guns. So you can have 200,000 people protesting and have 5 or 6 sick people with guns. And when they start shooting them right between the eyes, and you see a guy fall and another one fall, and you have no guns, very few people would be able to stand there and do it. I mean, I understand it. I tell them not to. Don't forget, they killed 42,000 people last month. 42,000 unarmed protesters. They had no guns. So they had a 250,000 people crowd, and they had snipers. They had like 4 or 5 snipers in buildings up high. And you're standing there, and all of a sudden a guy on your left goes down, and somebody. That's what happened with the women protests. They had 200,000 women protesting a year ago, and everyone thought that was the end of Iran. And then all of a sudden, a woman dropped dead with a bullet right there, always right there. Then another woman dropped, and then the word started to spread, and then there was panic, and then they ran, and so I don't want that to happen. We don't need that, we don't need it. But the only reason that they want to protest so badly, but they don't have weapons. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. President. Next week, you have a very important meeting with President Xi in Beijing. Secretary Bessent has said that a top priority on the agenda will be Iran. What do you hope to achieve with President Xi as it relates to Iran?
Well, I have a very good relationship with President Xi. I find him to be a tremendous guy, and we get along well, and you see how we do. We're doing a lot of business with China and making a lot of money. We're making a lot of money. It's different than it used to be. But I'll be talking about that'll be one subject. But he's been very nice about this. In all fairness, he gets like 60% of his oil from Hormuz, and I think he's been very respectful. We haven't been challenged by China. They don't challenge us, and he wouldn't do that. I don't think he'd do that because of me. But I think he's been very respectful, and we've offered, if he wants to send the ships to the United States. I think one of the big things that's happened is I made a statement: send your ships to Texas. It's not that much further. Send your ships to Louisiana. Send your ships to Alaska. Alaska is actually very close to a lot of the Asian countries. People don't realize it. Japan is back and forth. It's like, it doesn't seem it, but it's a very short route, 2 days shorter than almost any other route. We're making tremendous big deals with South Korea and with Japan. But I said, send your ships. All of a sudden, I don't know if you saw the graph today. This is Space Force, which I created. Space Force has, they just sent out some photos of the ships that are lined up all the way down the ocean like it's a highway. It looks like the Long Island Expressway for ships. And they're all heading to Texas, Louisiana. We've made up this, and that's why when I decided that I have to do this for the good of the world, not just the United States, in a way, we would have been in less trouble than a lot of other places. Certainly the Middle East would have been blown up. There wouldn't be a Middle East anymore. They would have taken over the Middle East. Now they're trying to survive, and they won't be successful unless they make a deal. Oh, if they don't make a deal, they won't be successful. It'll go very quickly and methodically. Believe me, it'll be very easy. But we have so many alternatives. It's amazing. And nobody knew this, because as an example, Japan got 90% of their oil, most of their energy, but most of their oil from the Hormuz Strait. South Korea got 43% of it. By the way, their ship was shot at. They were not in the cavalcade of ships. They decided to go it alone, and their ship got the hell knocked out of it yesterday. But they didn't shoot the ships that were guarded by us, I'll tell you that. We knocked down a lot of missiles. So what happens is that we have a situation where we have total control. As you know, the blockade's been amazing. It's like a piece of steel. Nobody's going to challenge the blockade. And I think it's working out very well. We're going to see. I can say this: Iran wants to make a deal. What I don't like about Iran is they'll talk to me with such great respect, And then they'll go on television, they'll say, we did not speak to the president. We did not. I just spoke to, we did not speak to the president. So they play games, but let me just tell you, they want to make a deal. And who wouldn't? When your military is totally gone, we could do anything we want to them. Who wouldn't? Please.
On the filibuster, Mr. President, you've posted a lot about wanting to eliminate the filibuster. It hasn't happened. Are you disappointed in Leader Thune?
Yeah, no, I'm disappointed. I like John a lot, but he has a couple of Republicans that are foolish people. A couple of them I like, a couple of them I can't stand, actually, if you want to know the truth. Although I am, according to CNN, 100% approval within the Republican Party. That's better than your record, Gary. I'm at 100% approval. Did you see the CNN poll? Nobody talks about it. CNN, I think the people that did that poll probably got fired. But within the Republican Party and MAGA, which is basically 100% of the party, I think, but 100%. No, I think that you're going to see some very interesting things. The filibuster, if you had it, we should have the Save America Act. We should have voter identification, voter ID. We should have proof of citizenship. We should have mail-in voting for the military and people that need it, but not for everybody. Because anytime you have mail-in voting, they're going to cheat. And they cheat like dogs. And they have to cheat. You know, in all fairness to the Democrats, when you have men and women's sports, when you have open borders, when you have transgender mutilization, don't listen to this, kids, of your children, transgender mutilization of your children for everyone. When you have policies like that, you have to cheat. It's the only way they can win. And we shouldn't allow them to cheat. And we should terminate the filibuster, because if they get the chance, they'll do it in the first hour back.
Yeah. Mr. President, thank you. When Iran is seeing 50% inflation, they've moved money from their sovereign wealth.
Their economy is crashing.
Would you allow their financial system then to fail?
Well, I guess so, because we're making it fail, right?
Is that what it takes?
I hope it fails.
Is that what it takes?
You know why? Because I want to win. It takes getting pounded on by the military, I think, for more. But in addition to that, it is failing. You know, we have sanctions on them, tremendous sanctions. Scott Bessent's done a great job. We have sanctions that nobody's ever seen before. No, they're failing. Their currency is worthless. Their inflation is probably 150%. The real number is 150%. They aren't paying their soldiers. They can't pay their soldiers. The money is worthless. No, they should do the smart thing, you know. They should do the smart thing, and because we don't want to go in and kill people. We really don't. I don't want to. It's too tough. Great people. I know the people. I have so many Iranian friends from New York and from other places over the years. They're great people. I don't want to kill those.
Gas prices in the United States
shooting incident yesterday. Is it possible that you can talk about that?
Yeah, gas prices in the United States are $1.48 cents a gallon. You said they would come back down. Will Project
They'll drop lower than they were before.
Will Project Freedom, supporting those ships, make that happen?
Well, it will, because so people don't realize some of these tankers hold 2 million barrels. One of them holds 4. I think it's the largest one in the world. That sucker is big. I've never seen anything like it, a ship. It's bigger than aircraft carriers. And yeah, it has a big impact. It's so much. You know, there are like 400 ships in there, 400. That in itself. Now, the best is when it ends and just neutralizes. But what's happening is people are learning to buy oil from the United States. I mean, they're making the trip, and they have safer. Probably it's a better product too, by the way. But they're learning to buy. They're changing their habits. So when I did this, I thought the market would go down 25%, and I thought that was a great deal if it did. If it went down 25%, I was satisfied. I said, because we cannot let these people have a nuclear weapon. They'll use it. We can't. I also thought oil would go up to 200, 250, maybe 300, and I knew it would be short term, but I thought it would go. I looked today; it's like at 102, and that's a very small price to pay for getting rid of a nuclear weapon from people that are really mentally deranged. Yeah.
Mr. President, just on politics.
The world is like, by the way, other presidents should have done this. 47 years they've been toying with these stupid people. in many cases, stupid people. This should have been done by Obama. He went the other way. He was giving them cash. He sent plane loads of Boeing 757, took the seats out, and put green cash, $1.7 billion in the plane. Every bank in Virginia, D.C., and Maryland was stripped of their cash. They took out all the cash from the banks. They put it into a plane, a Boeing 757 packed with cash, and they flew it to Iran, and they let these guys just, I don't know what the hell they did with it, but they took it and then gave them billions and billions of dollars and bribed them basically to be friends. And after giving them tens of billions of dollars, they screwed Obama, okay? That's not the way we play. No, we do it the old-fashioned way. And they should wave. They're very proud. Maybe you won't see a white flag, but essentially that's already what they are. They should wave the white flag of surrender. In hockey, they say uncle, right? When are they gonna cry uncle? But and they have another expression. If this were a fight, they would stop it. But you know, we have to go out and we have to do it, and it's very sad. It's very sad to see. Even shooting those boats, they've got 3-4 guys. They got a little machine gun in front. They're shooting at one of our ships that's meant for it. It bounces. They don't even know they're being shot at. And then they take it out with an Apache helicopter in about 2 seconds. They go, Apache ship, northwest 10 degrees. Turns around, boom. I don't like that, you know? You lose people. All these people, it's so unnecessary. It's so unnecessary. One thing we have the greatest military in the world. I built it because I built it in my first term. I didn't think I'd be using it at least so much in my second term. But we have the greatest military, the best equipment in the world. We had 111 missiles shot at one of our assets, one of the aircraft carriers, a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago. Think of this, 111 sophisticated missiles shot at one of our aircraft carriers. And every single one of those missiles was shot down with no problem whatsoever. If you would have said that 10 years ago, 5 years ago, it would have been an impossibility. You would have had to take those shots. Every single missile was laying in the water far away. I mean, they weren't even upset. And they're the coolest people. If you ever see them, you know, when they do the missile, right? They say, missile coming, and these guys go, it's like almost like, they're very smart. These are extremely smart people. They go to very good schools, but they shot down, who would think they're like a needle in a haystack. 111 missiles shot. 111 missiles were knocked down into the water. Didn't even get close to the aircraft carrier. No, nobody has a military like us.
All right, so the president earlier today during that proclamation signing, of course, awaiting the Secretary of State Marco Rubio for the press briefing that will start in about 30 minutes or so. Before we get to our next live interview, let's go to some of our sponsors, including Calci.com/RSBN. Of course, you can download the app if you'd like. You can go to the QR code that you see there on your screen, or you can go to Calci.com/RSBN. All sorts of topics on there, from sports to faith, politics, weather, all sorts of stuff that people are putting money on the line for, and also checking out various polls. Specifically right now, a lot of people talking about the LA mayor race, where Spencer Pratt has spiked after a viral ad there, but has dipped back down after Kamala Harris endorsed Karen Bass. In Texas, a Texas state Republican primary, the decision comes down to May 26, so a bit later in the month. Coming down to the wire, Cornyn was as high as 80% in March, but is now below 50% per Calci. And the California governor race on the Democrat side, Xavier Becerra has recently overtaken Tom Steyer. Of course, we know it's Chad Bianco and Steve Hilton on the right side of history, the Republicans there. So we'll be monitoring that race as well, as the primary is nearing in the Golden State. Let's also go to CovePure.com. You've heard us talk about Cove Pure before, and if the water scares in Flint, Michigan, and East Palestine weren't enough to get you to make the switch, well, this might. More than 176 million Americans are drinking tap water with PFAS in it. They're those man-made chemicals used in food packaging, nonstick cookware, firefighting foam. Scientists call them forever chemicals because once they're in your body, they stay there. They don't break down, and they're linked to hormone disruption, immune damage, and increased cancer risk. But here's the part that's making a number of people upset, because the EPA, they set legal limits for PFAS in drinking water back in 2024, but water systems have until 2031 to comply. Obviously, that's a whole 5 years from now. And until that deadline arrives, a utility can be operating above the legal limit right now, and they're not required to notify you. So you're just drinking that water, and that's why every single household should get Cove Pure, because the government knows these chemicals are harmful enough to regulate. They're just not making anyone act on it quite yet, which means if you want clean, healthy water, you're going to have to do it yourself. So Cove Pure was engineered exactly for something like this. Unlike those normal pitcher filters that you see at the store, the Clearwave technology here, it's reverse osmosis technology, is actually certified to remove up to 99.9% of contaminants. So those PFAS, the heavy metals, the fluoride, pharmaceuticals, it's filtering particles hundreds of thousands of times smaller than a single human hair. And the best part about Cove Pure is they just make it very easy. It sits right on your countertop. You don't have to drill any holes or call someone in to install it. You just plug it in, and you can even get whatever temperature water you want, hot, cold, or warm, with a tap of a button. So don't wait till 2031. Take control of your water quality right now. Head to covepure.com/RSBN. And because you're a viewer of Right Side Broadcasting Network, you get $250 off right now. So if you go to covepure.com/RSBN. All right, it is 2:30 on the nose, as we have about 30 minutes yet until we get to the White House. Let's go now to New York City. Joining us now is the founder of Last Stand Political Action Committee, Jason Meister. Thanks so much for joining us, Jason. I don't hear your audio currently right now. Let's take a quick commercial break maybe, and we'll be right back with that live interview.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First News. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed. So join us and be part of the right side of history.
Hey y'all, it's Silk from Diamond and Silk Chit Chat Live. Look, don't forget to watch my show right here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. It's imperative that you do so, okay? Bye-bye.
Jason Meister. Thanks so much for joining us, Jason.
Thanks for having me.
Definitely. Let's talk about New York City right out of the gate. What is it like living there now compared to years past under Mamdani?
Well, we have a tremendous amount of crime here in New York City. Safety is an issue for every New Yorker. We were promised a lot of different things. Free buses never came. It's unfortunate, but this city has fallen very significantly in the last couple of years under the leadership of the Democrat Party, and now what I would call a radical left Marxist in Mayor Zohran Mamdani.
Exactly, and that's what we're hearing here at Right Side too. When we interview people based in New York City, it's just it's not a good look out there right now with what's going on. Before we get to the real mayor of New York City, America's mayor, and your thoughts about the great Rudy Giuliani, I wanted to ask you about the Last Stand Political Action Committee. Let's talk about that. When was that started? What is that all about?
Yeah, so we started the Last Stand Political Action Committee in the 2024 presidential election. We essentially worked the swing states. We did digital ads, and we did a lot of different other types of media content to advance President Trump's campaign in those swing states. In particular, Michigan and Pennsylvania is where we moved the needle significantly against Kamala Harris. We really weaponized Kamala Harris's own words against her in those key swing states, and we were very effective in doing so.
That's awesome, because we saw what happened in 2016 in Michigan and Pennsylvania going to President Trump. We saw what happened in 2024 thanks to efforts by your committee, but also we know what happened in 2020 as well. We should have won all those, but we know what happened there. But outside of that, what is it like to take part in these kind of things to help we the people, to help advance freedom? I mean, at the end of the day, those are the basic things that every American loves. But for you to really take that role must feel good. And then also any advice you'd want to share with other people that might want to do something like that.
Absolutely, and thank you for that question. As an American, as a patriot, as a born and raised New Yorker, I feel that it's my responsibility and obligation as a citizen of these United States to protect the Constitution and this republic. And so I've gotten very engaged and involved in these elections, whether it's the local elections here in New York City. I filed a PAC, Defend NYC, against Zohran Mamdani in this last mayoral race, or it's President Trump taking on the establishment, the deep state, in these general elections in 2016, 2020, and 2024. It's been an absolute honor for me to be involved, engaged, and part of the constitutional process and these electoral processes. So it's my honor, and I take it very seriously.
When you look on the island, Long Island, when you look at upstate, when you look at Westchester County, when you look at some of the boroughs, there are people that bleed red, white, and blue. There are patriots. I remember were you at the presidential rally with President Trump back in the Bronx? I mean, it was.
I was.
Yeah, I was there too. And you saw people from all walks of life supporting Trump. They got through that woke mind virus and realized, wait, this guy's working for the people. These other people, they never did. So what is it like, man, to be in New York, though, to know that there is some red around, but there's just, maybe it's rigged elections locally? I mean, what's the deal there?
Look, it's an incredible movement that Donald Trump started, this MAGA movement back in 2015 when he came down that golden escalator just a couple blocks away from where I'm sitting right now in Trump Tower. I've known President Trump as a real estate developer who cut his teeth in New York City real estate in the rough and tumble world that I come from. And I think in many ways, it sharpened him to be the commander-in-chief that he is today. Because, it is a very rough and tumble city. And so I do actually think that a lot of this MAGA movement was really born here in New York City. And actually, Rudy Giuliani and his roots as mayor, cleaning up this city from the mob to cleaning off the streets, the homelessness. Giuliani really turned this city around, and Donald Trump and the MAGA movement is in many ways a product of that movement. So it's incredible to witness, and I go back very long with Rudy Giuliani, and so I've been praying for him these last couple of days and hoping that he comes out on top.
Exactly. So yeah, what was your initial reaction to that? Because we know that people like the late great Bernie Kerik, and we know that Mayor Giuliani, and we know that Donald Trump. I mean, you're talking about fierce New Yorkers. Then no wonder President Trump could handle the media like a fiddle, playing them like a fiddle. No wonder, because he's dealt with that kind of stuff for so long, right? So let's get back to Rudy, though. Same thing. What a great leader during such a terrible, tough time in New York City in 9/11.
Absolutely. I'll never forget where I was on 9/11. I was in my college dorm. I think I was a freshman at the time. watching the Twin Towers come down. I mean, you thought that the world was coming to an end. And who was there standing in the rubble of a city that was broken, of a country that was under attack on U.S. soil, but Mayor Rudy Giuliani, who wasn't just a mayor of New York City that day, but really transformed into a mayor, America's mayor of the country, standing in the ground zero rubble with ash all over his face, and just showing the American people this resilience, this leadership. I think every single person that is in this country, every citizen in this United States of America owes Mayor Giuliani some real honor and indebtedness to him for his leadership in those early days after the 9/11 attack. I think what Rudy Giuliani has experienced over the last couple of years supporting President Trump is absolutely atrocious. He's a product of his litigations, his disbarment, the lawfare that he had to undertake just for supporting this president is just disgusting. I think it's why he's put in the hospital most recently. And I think that it's the Democrat lawfare that needs to be held accountable. That's why I hope that the Fort Pierce grand jury in Florida, down in the Southern District of Florida, truly holds the government criminals accountable for the decade-long criminal conspiracy, starting with Russiagate, that went through the Mar-a-Lago raid, the 2020 election, Arctic frost, and the slew of other crimes that these government officials undertook to try to get rid of the MAGA movement and put Rudy Giuliani, President Trump, and many others under complete and utter distress and lawfare. And so I really just hope that we can bring this awful chapter of lawfare to a close and give some justice to people like Rudy Giuliani.
1,000,000%, not even 100%, 1,000,000%, because it's accountability, it's truth, justice, and the American way. So a lot of people that are watching right now, whether live or on replay, and even if they don't watch, people have talked the same thing that you're saying right now. Those conversations have happened in every state across the union. Let's finish up with, since we went 2001, let's go 19 years later, 2020. Rudy not only was a leader, America's mayor, he also stepped in and said, hey, there's something fishy about this election outcome here. And he was a real proponent of, hey, these guys cheated.
Absolutely. Look, there's no question that the 2020 election was rigged and stolen. It was fortified. The Democrats had admitted to that. I mean, at the end of the day, there is fraud in every single election. But when you take a pandemic and you weaponize it to enforce and push universal mail-in ballots across multiple states, you take the fraud in every election and you multiply it 10x, 100x, and it's overwhelmingly on one side of the aisle, the left. And so, look, I mean, even just taking on its face the story about Hunter Biden's laptop, which Rudy Giuliani found in a Delaware repair shop, and then brought it to the New York Post, who reported on a true, authentic laptop, which showed Joe Biden and his son taking bribes and extorting foreign countries like Russia and Ukraine. And you take that story and you don't allow Americans in swing states to read that story for their own eyes. You totally have a weaponized, rigged election. And so I think that the American people see it for what it is. I think that we have to take control of our elections so that the people feel that they're actually voting for the candidate that they wish to be in power. And that's very important for these United States so that we don't have these types of civil wars and fights and radical terrorists. We need to get free and fair elections. And Rudy Giuliani fought very hard for free and fair elections, especially in Georgia.
And still is. And finally, question for you, what would be your message to the representatives on Capitol Hill, specifically 51 senators, Republican senators, that need to nuke the filibuster to get the Save America Act passed?
Well, I can only tell you one thing. If you thought that the lawfare and the abuses of power were abusive and aggressive in the Biden administration of 2020 through 2024, you have no idea what's coming if we lose the midterms and or we, God forbid, lose the next presidential election to what I see as the Democrat Party, which really is now a radical left Marxist party. It will hit you like a ton of bricks because they will nuke the filibuster. They will make Puerto Rico and DC states. They will destroy the rule of law. And so we must pass the SAVE Act. We need to step up. We need to take back our country in these midterms. We need to make sure we hold the government criminals accountable for all the lawfare, whether it's Jack Smith, Letitia James, and all the other people that perpetrated lawfare against the United States of America. We have to hold these criminals accountable. Otherwise, this country is gone. So I think it's imperative that the 51 Republicans vote for the SAVE Act and pass it now. We cannot waste any time.
As you guys might be listening right now, live or on replay, Jason Meister is a complete rock star in this movement for freedom, for we the people, for the Constitution of the United States, the founder of Last Stand Political Action Committee. Jason, thank you again for joining us. Hope to have you back to continue on. And a lot of times at this point in an interview, sir, in the mainstream media, they just move on because they're playing TV. But this situation, what you're talking about, is 1,000,000% for real. This is not just getting an interview and calling it a day and moving on. You know what I mean? Do you hear what I'm saying?
Absolutely. I mean, this is very serious stuff, especially what I talked about from Russiagate through the 2022 Mar-a-Lago raid, through Arctic frost. I mean, we've never experienced anything like this lawfare that the Democrats put this country through. They've ripped this country apart. We must, absolutely must, hold every one of these people accountable so it never, ever happens again.
Jason, thank you again for joining us here on Right Side and Spitting Truth all day.
Thank you very much.
Awesome stuff. I mean, what can you say there? You know what I mean? That's exactly what I'm talking about. That guy right there, and many people we interview here on this network, just on the right side of history, just spitting truth constantly. Just truth, truth, truth. And the truth sets us free. We need that Save America Act passed, as you know. It's 2:45 Eastern Time, getting ready to hear from, or 2:46 actually, the Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who will be holding that press conference coming up. Of course, the great Carolyn Leavitt is on maternity leave, so the Secretary of State Marco Rubio filling in today. We'll have that press briefing at the White House at the James S. Brady press briefing room, so it'll be quite interesting to see Marco step up to the podium instead of Carolyn, which we've gotten accustomed to over the past year and almost a half. All right, let's go to a few of our sponsors here on Right Side, including All Family Pharmacy, because specifically when it comes to healthcare, people are looking for something simple, access, control, and peace of mind. And right now, that's not always easy to get. You've probably experienced it, long wait times, packed waiting rooms, dealing with insurance, and still not getting what you need when you need it. That's why more Americans are turning to All Family Pharmacy. They've built a system that's simple, safe, and secure. It's simple because you go online, you choose what you need, and fill out a short medical form. It's safe because a licensed doctor reviews your request and prescribes if appropriate. And it's secure. Your information and transactions are protected from start to finish. So they offer access to more than 400 prescription medications, from everyday maintenance medications to antibiotics, antivirals, ivermectin, mebendazole, NAD+, and more, all shipped directly to your door. So there's no confusion, no delays, just a better way to get what you need. Go to allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN, and at checkout, use the RSBN10 promo code. You'll get 10% off. Let's go to our next sponsor here on Right Side Broadcasting Network, Birch Gold Group. You know, when there are supply constraints on commodities, prices surge. And we see that with fuel prices as the Strait of Hormuz was blockaded. And you know what else really is a limited commodity? Simply gold. They mine it out of the ground, and when it's gone, it's gone. Governments can't just print more of it. And that's why everyone from central banks to savvy savers are diversified with gold. So if you've been thinking about it for years but still have never moved some of your savings into physical gold, Birch Gold Group is who we trust to help you. Now through May 29th, Birch Gold is giving first-time gold buyers a rebate of up to $10,000 on qualifying purchases. So for details and a free information kit on diversifying into gold, all you have to do is text Trump to that number you see on your screen, 989898. So Birch Gold can actually help you convert an existing IRA or 401k into a tax-sheltered IRA and physical gold. So just to get everything started, text Trump to the number 989898. This is to see if you qualify for a first-time gold buyer rebate of up to $10,000. You also get that free info kit. Again, text Trump to 989898 today. All right, before we move on, let's take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back. This is RSBN Live. I'm Matthew Alvarez.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First News. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed, so join us and be part of the right side of history.
Hey y'all, it's Silk from Diamond and Silk Chit Chat Live. Look, don't forget to watch my show right here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. It's imperative that you do so, okay? Bye-bye.
Welcome back to Right Side Broadcasting Network. Let's take a look at something that happened within the past hour. President Trump, after he signed a proclamation this morning at the White House regarding athletics in America, the president also stepped out on the South Lawn, joining presidential fitness challenge activities. He's out there with a number of known professionals, from Bryson DeChambeau, the golfer, to Gary Player and others. Great to see that. The president out there as well with student athletes from across the country. So that event happened earlier today, the actual proclamation signing, some of the back and forth with the press, and then the president stepped out there. There's a video that's circulating as well online, which maybe we could show that a little bit later, but President Trump doing the Trump dance, teaching some of the kids there how to do that. So a lot going on there on the South Lawn at this point, at this hour, at 2:51 Eastern. Most likely the South Lawn has been cleared up from all of that, but this is from within the hour. And speaking of fitness, just imagine trying to, I don't know, ride a motorcycle from coast to coast. How about cycling on a bike from coast to coast? Well, we ran into somebody that's doing that, and it's all for a good cause, for the St. Jude's Children's Hospital. So let's go to that interview with John Hoffman out of Pennsylvania. And let's now go to a patriot in Pennsylvania who's cycling from coast to coast, all to raise money for St. Jude Children's Hospital. John Hoffman joins us from South Central Pennsylvania. John, thanks again for joining us here on Right Side.
Thank you.
Definitely. All right, so let's talk about this. Tell us about the trip. What was it that you kind of said, you know what, I have to do something like this? Why are you doing this?
Well, St. Jude's Research Hospital, that's something that has, for a very long time, just, I don't know, it's just a charity that's really struck a chord with me. And I was at a place in my life post-COVID, kind of figuring out what I wanted to do after all that craziness of pandemic. And to be honest, I was praying one night and I felt God just put it on my heart that He wanted me to raise some money for these kids. And just the method, it's just cycling across the country just seems like a really cool and awesome thing to do, and something that was in my wheelhouse, no pun intended. But yeah.
It sounds like you have that adventurous style of spirit. I know, talking with you, you've done a number of these, like not really a triathlon, but you're that type of guy. You like the adventure aspect of things. But talk to us about the start. When are you starting? Where are you starting? And then you're going all the way across the country, and then where are you ending up there?
So on May 7th, I'll be departing from Yorktown, Virginia, and I'll be taking the Trans-American Trail across America, and we'll be ending somewhere either Florence or Astoria, Oregon.
Okay, so from Virginia to Oregon, that's interesting. It's almost like that Oregon Trail in a way. Pretty awesome. And you think about it too, the fact that you are doing this where people can give a donation directly to St. Jude's, but through your cycling across the country. So it's not money that goes to anybody else except for directly to St. Jude's, which is awesome. And then we talked before, this is going to be during America 250. So do you know where you'd be in July? When will the trip end? And where will we be July 4th?
I wish I could say exactly where I would be, but I'm assuming somewhere right in the middle.
Okay, so maybe Kansas.
Probably Kansas.
Good stuff. So how do you go into training for something like this? What's it like to prepare for this mentally, emotionally, and all the things? I'll tell you, I know that I couldn't. I could try to cycle across the country, but it takes a certain kind of person to be able to do this. So tell us about that.
Well, it's like anything. You just gotta make your mind up to start, and it's the little things every day, little choices. I had done 2 trips earlier, increasing distance. I did in preparation last year the Great Allegheny Passage from Pittsburgh to Cumberland, Maryland, and that was a really good experience just to check my gear and make sure everything was all secured and what I needed, what I didn't need. And while that was only a 3-day trip, it did give me a lot of experience, and I have utilized back roads around here in Dillsburg, Pennsylvania to familiarize myself with my bike and all its gear and just try and condition myself the best I can.
Yeah. I understand that you've participated in marathons, the Spartan race. Have you participated in Tough Mudder as well?
Absolutely. I just did my first Tough Mudder recently in Slippery Rock. It was a really fun experience. A lot of great people.
Yeah, definitely. And so this is obviously for a great cause. So can you tell the people that are watching right now, how can people donate to St. Jude's Children's Hospital toward you in the way of your coast-to-coast trip? How does that all work?
Absolutely. The fundraiser itself is called Hope on Two Wheels, and it will be a Facebook page as well as a Instagram account that you can follow. There will be pictures posted periodically, and there are links to the fundraiser itself on those socials.
Okay, so it's hope for what was it again?
Hope on Two Wheels, the word two.
Okay, so Hope on Two Wheels. Now, we'll put up a QR code. I believe we'll be able to put one up on the screen there. So if people were to use their phone right now, that QR code would take them directly to the St. Jude's site for your specific campaign. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah, it'll take you right to the fundraiser page.
And that's probably the best way to donate. As again, this is all proceeds, 100%, right, going to the hospital, correct?
Absolutely. I am an unsupported cyclist, and all the money I raise goes directly to St. Jude's.
And that's awesome. And it's great to see that it goes with that QR code and the website links to St. Jude's Hospital. Finally, just your thoughts about, the fact that these kids are in these hospitals and they're dealing with all sorts of ailments, and it breaks people's hearts. It's not easy to kind of watch and hear these stories, but that must be what drives you as well to do this act, to go from Virginia to Oregon starting on May 7th.
Absolutely. The thing that impressed on me so much is that these kids are in the greatest fight of their life, and you see them being kids. They're going through such great trials, but it doesn't stop them from spreading joy and having a smile on their face, even though they're going through something terrible, that they don't stop living. That just inspired me so much.
That's awesome. Well, good luck to you, and people can follow you on there as well. Again, John Hoffman joining us from Pennsylvania, getting ready to go coast to coast for St. Jude Children's Hospital. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Great stuff there. So again, if you want to donate on the QR code, all you have to do is maybe at the end of the broadcast, or even now if you really wanted to, you just scrub back, replay, get that QR code. And I actually, while I was watching the interview, there's a monitor right here below the camera. I used my phone and made sure the QR code worked on the screen. It does, and it takes you to the St. Jude's Children's Hospital page, and specifically for his campaign for Josh Hoffman. He's going coast to coast. He's leaving Thursday from Virginia, going all the way to Oregon, and he's not on a motorcycle, he's not in a car, he's not walking, which would be tough, but he's going to be cycling. As you heard, he already did a couple of those jaunts a while ago. So so if you'd like to donate, again, the QR code is on there. Definitely goes directly to St. Jude's, as you guys would see when you hit that QR code. So great to see those kind of things happening in our country. And leads me to my next thought before we get to some sponsors. Of course, we're going to be going to the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, here any second from now for the press briefing. But if there's something like that going on in your neck of the woods, email us at feedback@rsbn.tv. Also, while I'm at it, if you want to send us any patriotic photos, the flag maybe outside, no identifying spots like your address, none of that stuff, just your photos of the flag or anything just cool that's patriotic, feedback@rsbn.tv. Great to see Josh Hoffman doing that, going from coast to coast. All right, this all brought to you by a number of great sponsors, including Cove Pier. So let's go to covepierrightnow.com/RSBN, because you've heard us talk about Cove Pier before. And if the water scares in Flint, Michigan and East Palestine, Ohio weren't enough to get you to make the switch, well, this might, because more than 176 million Americans are drinking tap water with these PFAs in it. They're these man-made chemicals used in food packaging, nonstick cookware, firefighting foam. Scientists call these PFAs forever chemicals because once they're in your body, they stay there, they don't break down, and they're linked to hormone disruption, immune damage, and increased cancer risk. But here's the part that is making a number of people upset, because the EPA, they're doing their job. They're setting legal limits for PFAs in drinking water. They did that back in 2024. But then the water systems across the country have until 2031 to comply. That's 5 whole years from now. Until that deadline arrives, the utility can be operating above the legal limit right now and isn't required to notify you, so you're just drinking that water. And that's why every single household simply needs Cove Pier, because the government knows these chemicals are harmful enough to regulate. They're just not making anyone act on it yet. Which means if you want clean, healthy water, you're going to have to do it yourself. Cove Pier was engineered exactly for this. Unlike the, those normal pitcher filters that you see at the store, well, the Cove Pier Clearwave reverse osmosis technology, it's certified to remove up to 99.9% of contaminants. So the PFAs and the heavy metals, the fluoride, the pharmaceuticals, filtering particles hundreds of thousands of times smaller than a single human hair. And the best part is they just simply make it easy for you. It sits right in your countertop. You don't have to drill any holes or call someone in to install it. You just plug it in, and you can even get whatever temperature water you want, hot, cold, or warm. Again, all through the filtration process. And that's all with a tap of a button. So just wait for, obviously you can't wait until 2031, because that's 5 years from now. So you can take control of your water quality right now by heading to covepure.com/RSBN. And because you're a viewer of this network, you can go to covepure.com/RSBN and get that $250 off right now, as it's just a couple minutes after the 3 o'clock hour. I believe we have one more sponsor before we get to Washington, D.C., as we don't see the live feed yet, so it gives us a little bit of time here. When it comes to healthcare, people are looking for something simple. You get access and control and peace of mind. And right now, that's not always easy to get. You've probably experienced it, the long wait times, the packed waiting rooms, dealing with insurance and still not getting what you need when you need it. That's why more and more Americans are turning to All Family Pharmacy. They've just simply built a system that's simple, safe, and secure. It's simple because you go online, you choose what you need, and fill out a short medical form. It's safe. A licensed doctor reviews your request and prescribes if appropriate. And it's secure. Your information and transactions are protected from start to finish. They offer access to more than 400 prescription medications, everyday maintenance medications to antibiotics, antivirals, ivermectin, mebendazole, NAD+, and more. All shipped directly to your door. So no confusion, no delays, just a better way to get what you need. allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. Again, at checkout, use the RSBN10 promo code. You'll get that 10% off All Family Pharmacy. And there's another QR code there for you as it's 3:03 Eastern Time, Tuesday, May 5th. As you see, we will begin shortly when it comes to the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, holding the press briefing. Again, interesting, right? We've been seeing the great Carolyn Levitt do this job, obviously on maternity leave. Congratulations to her. And it's awesome to see that there's someone else that can step up to the plate. So we're going to see the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, do that here in just a few minutes. I think I saw a video just the other day of the Secretary of State stopping by at the podium there. Some of the reporters were in there. It wasn't during a press briefing. Maybe just getting a feel for the digs, as he will be stepping in there today. And yeah, so I'm sure we'll get that opening statement from the Secretary of State, and we'll see how the Q&A goes back and forth. I have seen, of course, and maybe you have seen it too, where the Secretary of State has held press briefings over at the State Department. So he's no stranger to this back and forth. And of course, you really can't be in Washington, D.C., in the highest office of the land, cabinet position, and not be able to handle a press conference, you know what I mean? So we'll be seeing that here shortly. In the meantime, let's go to some of what we covered earlier, for those of you that are just joining us, because we have an update on Mayor Rudy Giuliani, this from his spokesperson, Ted Goodman. So let's go to clip one as we're on standby. And again, if we see any live feed kick into high gear there at the White House, we'll go right to it. So let's, as we're standing by, let's go to Ted Goodman for that update.
On September 11th, 2001, as so many of us so vividly remember, Mayor Rudy Giuliani ran toward the towers to help those in need. This led to a diagnosis of a restrictive airway disease. He's now breathing on his own with his family and primary medical care provider at his side. Mayor Giuliani is the ultimate fighter. This is something he's demonstrated time and time again throughout his life, and he's going to win this fight. His family deeply appreciates the outpouring of love and support. The mayor believes in the power of prayer, and we're feeling that. We're feeling that today. He remains in critical but stable condition. Stay tuned for additional updates as we can provide them, and please keep the mayor in your prayers. They are helping in a big way, and we feel it. God bless America, and God bless America's mayor, Rudy Giuliani.
All right, a great patriot and the America's mayor, of course, Rudy Giuliani. We had a great interview at the bottom of the hour, so about 35 minutes ago at 2:30 with Jason Meister out of New York City, just speaking about New York, speaking about President Trump, speaking about Rudy Giuliani, and really on the right side of history, man, just saying a lot of great things about accountability and justice and all of the things. You know, Rudy and the president and many others facing a ton of lawfare over the years, as you guys know, and the weaponization of government that we've seen in years past. So yeah, there's a lot to be done in order to really win and save the day, including Jason speaking about the Save America Act, so rightly coined by President Trump. It was called the SAVE Act at first. I believe it was the Safeguard, Voters Act of sorts. But now, of course, the Save America Act is the full name. But it's an uphill climb. Because it is stalled right now in the Senate. They're not talking about it every day. You need 51 senators to nuke the filibuster in order to have a simple majority to have another 51 senators, the same 51, to vote on it after you nuke the filibuster. Because if you don't nuke the filibuster, what they need is then 60 votes in order for it to pass. And they're not close to that number. No Democrats are going to vote for that because they like to go against the American people. But indirectly, I guess that's the same that goes for some in the Senate on the Republican side of the aisle, because if everybody realized how serious this was, which they probably do, but unfortunately we have a swamp in D.C. still, And the fact that they're not passing the Save America Act is atrocious. It's horrible. It's wrong. It's against everything that we believe in this country. So we see in other countries, they have voter ID and proof of citizenship. Now, I did look yesterday, and I like Grok on X. I do like some AI, right? You still have to research and double check and fact check what Grok is saying, but still, I typed in how many states have something similar already happening with the Save America Act. And there are about 12 to 14 states that have some sort of semblance, as you say, to have the specifics of the Save America Act, proof of citizenship or voter ID. So maybe what we need to do, if the Save America Act is not going to pass at the federal level, at the state level, maybe talk to your state senators and state representatives, whether you're at a Capitol building like in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, or a state house like in Columbus, Ohio. Wherever your state capital is, maybe email, maybe call, maybe, be peaceful, of course, but let people know at your state level. I want voter ID. I want proof of citizenship in order to register to vote. I want no mail-in ballots unless it's for medical or military or a few of those instances. So basically model the federal model after that. So maybe at the state level. And I've heard this, I'm not going to say who because I don't want to get the person wrong with that, but I remember interviewing someone on the network talking about we have to go to the state level. It just popped in my mind, Seth Keshel, the great Seth Keshel. Obviously getting a post the other day from President Trump as he has a book out, and he talked about somebody that knows the numbers and knows what's needed. Maybe we'll have him back on the broadcast sometime soon. But anyway, whatever state you're watching in right now, maybe that's something that we should start drumming up support for, is just at the state level. Let's just try and have something happen. And at least at the end of the day, we say to ourselves, well, we tried, instead of just sitting there and being like, oh, it's not going to work. Let's go to the State Department there in the sense of the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio.
Having me today. I'll be filling in for Caroline today, obviously. So I'll have a brief remarks here, and then we'll get to your questions. As you know, over the weekend, the president announced this Project Freedom, and the goal of it is to, frankly, if you want to talk about it, it's to rescue like almost 23,000 civilians from 87 different countries that are trapped inside of the Gulf and left for dead in the Persian Gulf by this Iranian regime. For more than 2 months now, these innocent sailors and commercial crew members have been stranded out at sea because Iran is conducting something that's not just criminal. It's criminal for sure, but it's desperate and destructive, this blockade of the Straits of Hormuz. Nations from around the world, the overwhelming majority of whom are not even engaged in any military hostilities, are now at risk not just of losing their cargo, but the lives of their own citizens because of this blockade. These ships, you don't leave a ship out there for this long. You start running out of food, you start running out of potable water, essential supplies, and they're at the mercy of this piracy. What it is, it's piracy. And not only that, but some of them have been open fire on and rained down senseless attacks on several civilian ships already. So frankly, the way to put it, these are innocent bystanders. These are countries and ships and so forth that have nothing to do with any of this, and nonetheless are being caught in the middle of it and being held hostage merely because Iran could do that, just as the regime brutally slaughtered tens of thousands of their own citizens for the crime of peaceful protest, because they're unhappy with the quality of life or the lack of quality of life in Iran today. And so they're sitting ducks. They're isolated, they're starving, they're vulnerable, and at least 10 sailors have already died as a result of the civilian sailors. So already many nations privately and some publicly have asked the United States to help free their ships and to restore freedom of navigation in the Straits of Hormuz and this critical artery of global trade. And so President Trump, as he always does, stepped up and answered the calls for their help. And he's directed the United States military to guide these stranded ships to safety, to provide a protective bubble under which they can operate and move product and get themselves out of there and out of the harm's way. And this is the first step towards reopening the strait and bringing this regime's last-ditch act of economic arson, bringing that to a close. We're doing it not only because we were asked, but because we're the only ones who can. Only we have the power to sort of take the steps that we've taken now. Under this president, under President Trump, the United States will help our friends. We're going to stand up to rogue regimes like the one in Tehran, and we're going to be unashamed to use our power and our abilities to project military power in the service of our national interest above all else. Now, what's really important for you to report and for everyone to understand is this is not an offensive operation. This is a defensive operation. And what that means is very simple. There's no shooting unless we're shot at first. Okay, we're not attacking them. But if they're attacking us or they're attacking a ship, you need to respond to that. You're not going to let some fast boat come up on a ship and shoot it up. We're going to respond to it, and we've been successful at it. I don't know what the exact number is, but I know a number of those fast boats have now been targeted, and will continue to be if they pose a threat to our forces. We'll shoot down drones, we'll shoot down missiles, but it's defensive in nature. This is defensive. So if you hear stories about attacks and launching of firing back and forth, it's not back and forth. We are only responding if attacked first. This is a defensive operation, and that's what's occurring here. Just about the importance of the Straits for a moment. This is approximately a quarter of the world's oil trade, along with significant volumes of fuel and fertilizer that operate through the Straits of Hormuz. The Iranian regime cannot be allowed to dictate who uses this vital waterway. I don't think this is also being reported enough. Maybe you are reporting. I don't read everyone. I don't know many damn outlets here. I don't know who you all are, but I mean, I know who some of you are, but I don't know all of you are. But I will say this about it. This is an international waterway. Okay, this is an international waterway. And international law is very clear, and I love it because everybody always talks about international law on this. International law on this is very clear. International waterways, no country can control them. There is no international law that allows you to say, I'm going to put mines in an international body of water and I'm going to blow up ships that don't listen to us and try to go through. That's what Iran is doing. This is a criminal act. And someone needs to do something about it. Something needs to be done. It's completely illegal, completely illegitimate, and completely unacceptable. And that's why the United States military is guiding stranded commercial ships safely through the strait and is working to restore freedom of navigation and putting an end to these efforts to hold the global economy hostage. So far, as a proof of concept and as a proof of function, 2 U.S. flag merchant ships have successfully transferred the Strait of Hormuz in the first stages of this project, and they're now safely on their way. The U.S. military is deploying the necessary assets to extend this defensive umbrella over commercial shipping. But there should be no mistake. And as I said this already, this is a defensive operation. I want to reiterate that point. This is important to understand. If no shots are fired at these ships and no shots are fired at us, we're not firing shots. But if we're fired on, we will respond, and we will respond with lethal efficiency. The assets supporting this project, by the way, include guided missile destroyers, over 100 land and sea-based aircraft, multi-domain unmanned platforms, and 15,000 of the finest military service members on the planet. These forces have already destroyed, as I told you earlier, I thought it was 6, it's 7 Iranian fast boats that failed to heed our warnings. And by fast boats, we're talking about, some of these things look like Boston whalers. Okay, so these are not like Navy ships. But nonetheless, they come fast at these boats, try to swarm them, try to harm them. We're not going to let that happen. So 7 of them now sit at the bottom of the sea, along with, by the way, the rest of Iran's Navy. That's where you can find their Navy today. And we're going to continue to systematically clear this passageway through the straits to restore freedom of navigation. Now, while this project steadily progresses, Operation Economic Fury, continues to impose maximum pressure on the Iranian regime and what remains of their already frail economy. Today, inflation in Iran is 70%, and their currency is in total and complete freefall. U.S. sanctions enforcement is stepping up. It's moving in lockstep with a naval blockade to degrade Iran's capacity to generate, to move, and repatriate revenue. It directly targets the regime's primary revenue lifelines. The blockade alone is costing Iran as much as $500 million a day in lost revenue. 90% of total Iranian trade has been halted, causing permanent damage to Iran's oil infrastructure as wells are forced to shut in. Again, all of this is in response to their piracy. Okay, it cannot be that you have these straits and they blow up any ship that moves and the only ships that get to go through are theirs. You can't have a situation in which the straits are closed to everyone else, but they benefit from the piracy. That can't happen. That's why the blockade is in place, and that's why these sanctions are crippling them. Any foreign financial, by the way, Treasury is now identifying and cutting off every dollar of revenue that's flowing to this regime. And so, look, any foreign financial institution or commercial actor that enables Iran's sanctions evasion is going to face secondary sanctions exposure and a loss of access to the U.S. financial system. As President Trump has said, and the facts clearly bear out, the United States of America holds all the cards. There is no scenario here in which if they decide to join a ladder of escalation, they wind up getting the last say. But our preference is for these straits to be opened to the way they're supposed to be open back to the way it was. Anyone can use it, no mines in the water, nobody paying tolls. That's what we have to get back to, and that's the goal here. Every day the conflict continues, however, our leverage on Iran will continue to increase, and their position will continue to weaken, especially as the blockade really begins to bite in conjunction with the sanctions. So, look, the time's come for Iran to make a sensible choice. And it's not easy for them to do that, obviously, because they have a fracture in their own leadership system. And apart from that, I mean, the top people in that government are, to say the least, they're insane in the brain. And so we need to address that, and it's difficult because it's hard to get past that in their system. But it's important for them to make a sensible choice and the one that's right for their people. The president, our president, has proven time and again that his preference is peace. But Iran must accept the reality of this situation and come to the negotiation table and accept terms that are good for them but ultimately good for the world. The diplomatic path, if there's a real diplomatic path, I'm not always going to be one, but if there's a real diplomatic path and we continue to explore it, Steve and Jared are working on that very hard. If there is one there, it could be one that leads them to reconstruction, to prosperity, and to stability, and to not posing a threat to the world. The alternative is growing isolation, economic collapse, and ultimately total defeat. I know what the right choice is for Iran. I hope that the people over there making decisions will make the right one. The last point I would make, and it really is important for them to understand this, is they really shouldn't test the will of the United States, at least not under President Donald Trump. He has proven time and again that he will back up what he says. And if they test him, ultimately they will lose. The hard way, the easy way, the long way, the short way, they will lose. And with that, it's time for your questions. So, Catherine, why don't we start with you first?
Catherine Harich, I'm an independent journalist. Secretary Rubio, have you seen any recent indications that Iran is willing to give up its nuclear weapons program that is credible, verifiable, and that would lead to an immediate de-escalation?
Well, look, this is a long-standing problem for them, right? I mean, they have wanted, they have always said they don't want a nuclear weapon. That's because they've always said that, they just don't mean it. And why do you say, well, how do you know they don't mean it? Well, we don't mean it because they're doing all the things, and historically have tried to do all the things that you do if you want a nuclear weapons program. For example, they innovate and try to innovate long-range delivery missiles that now, in some cases, are capable of reaching much of Europe. They build these large underground centrifuges for enrichment activity. There are countries in the world that are involved in the enrichment business, but these guys do it in mountains and in caves and in hiding. They've always had secret components of their nuclear program undisclosed to the world. And we know for a fact that they retain highly enriched uranium at 60%, that they did so. And that has no civilian use, none, zero whatsoever. So they have an opportunity here to agree to something that will make it clear that they're not interested in a one thing is to say we don't want a nuclear weapon. Another thing is to do the things that prove you don't want a nuclear weapon. By the way, if what Iran wants is a civilian nuclear program for power plants and stuff like that, there are a lot of countries in the world that have that, and they don't enrich. They import the enriched material. You know, they could have that if that's what they wanted, but they're not acting like that's what they wanted. They're acting like they want a military, nuclear program. That's unacceptable. So that's the process we're engaged in now. To create, that's the object of this diplomacy, is to come up with some level of understanding about what are the topics that they've agreed to negotiate on. We don't have to have the actual agreement written out, and one day this is highly complex and highly technical. But we have to have a diplomatic solution that is very clear about the topics that they are willing to negotiate on and the extent and the concessions they're willing to make at the front end in order to make those talks worthwhile. That's what Steve and Jared and the whole team is working on, and I hope to have good news on it. That's the outcome we would prefer. That's the outcome we would have preferred a year ago. That's the outcome I think most of us would have preferred a long time ago. But that's not the option they've given us given their activity. All right, there's no way I can figure out who to call on. I'm just going to press right in the middle, right there, you right there, yeah. In the back row.
Thank you, Mr. President.
I'll go to you next. I can't get everyone. All right, go ahead.
Thank you, Secretary Rubio.
Keep going right.
Welcome to the White House.
What's that?
Talking to me, sir?
Yeah, to you, yes, sir.
Thank you. I have two questions on two separate issues that come
under...
Do they
get two questions for these?
Two questions.
There's a lot of people in here.
That fall under your umbrella.
All right, well, you can ask me two questions. I'll give you one answer. Go ahead.
Thank you very much.
And I'll pick the one I like better.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. The first has to do with the blockade. There are lawmakers from both parties who claim the blockade is an act of war. What do you say to that? And my second question has to do with the fuel embargo of Cuba. How long, Mr. Secretary, will that last?
Okay, two things. All right, good. I'll answer both your questions because I like the second one too. The first one on the blockade. And so why do we have a blockade? We have a blockade because they shut down the straits. So I don't know which members of Congress you're talking to, but here's what I would ask them. I would ask everybody here. It's very simple. These guys have shut down the Straits of Hormuz. This is what Iran is saying. We will shut down the Straits. No one can go through. No country in the world can go through unless we allow you to go through, and you have to pay us. But our ships can go through, meaning the Iranian ships, as much as they want. That's crazy. Who would agree to that? So how are we going to have a situation where they get to close the Straits to everybody, and the only people who are allowed to go through there 100% without paying anything are the Iranians? If you do that, they'll keep the Straits closed forever. They're trying to make this some new normal. Okay, under no circumstances can we ever allow them to normalize the fact that they get to blow up commercial ships and put mines in the water. So the response to that is, we're going to blockade your ships. If everyone's ships are not getting out, your ships are not getting out either. That's not an act of war, that's a defensive measure. It's a counter to what they have decided to do. You know what is an act of war? Putting mines in the water. Why don't the members of Congress, whoever it is complaining about it, they should be all over that. These guys put mines in the water. That alone, mining in the water is illegal, period, under any circumstances, and they've done it. This is crazy stuff, but this is what they've done. On Cuba, oil blockade on Cuba. There's no oil blockade on Cuba per se. Here's what's happening with Cuba, okay? Cuba used to get free oil from Venezuela. Used to give them a bunch of free oil. They would take like 60% of that oil and resell it for cash. It wouldn't even go to benefit the people. So the only blockade that's happened is the Cubans have decided, the Venezuelans have decided, we're not giving you free oil anymore. And you can only imagine nowadays, the way oil prices are, no one's giving away free oil, much less to a failed regime. So the problem with Cuba is worse, okay? Their economic model doesn't work. Doesn't work. And the people who are in charge can't fix it. And the reason that I can't fix it is not just because they're communists, that's bad enough, but they're incompetent communists. The only thing worse than a communist is an incompetent one. And that's what, so incompetent communists run that country. They don't know how to fix it. They really don't. And we have 90 miles from our shores, a failed state that also happens to be friendly territory for some of our adversaries. So it's an unacceptable status quo. I will be addressing it, but not today. Okay. All right, let's go to the front, right there.
Secretary Rubio.
Yeah.
You are going to the Vatican to meet with the Pope. Is this an attempt to smooth things over with the Pope, given the rhetoric between President Trump and Pope Leo?
No, it's a trip we had planned from before, and obviously we had some stuff that happened. And no, look, there's a lot to talk about with the Vatican. I'll give you one example. The Pope just returned from a trip to Africa, where the church is growing very vibrantly. And we have shared concerns about religious freedom, freedom in different parts of the world. We'd love to talk to them about that. The topic of Cuba, we gave Cuba $6 million of humanitarian aid, but obviously they won't let us distribute it. We distributed it through the church. We'd like to do more. We're willing to give more humanitarian aid to Cuba, by the way, distributed through the church, but the Cuban regime has to allow us to do it. They won't allow us to give their own people more humanitarian aid, and we're willing to do it through the church. So there's a lot to talk about.
And the president recently said that the Pope is endangering a lot of Catholics as a result of his rhetoric around the Iran war. Is that a sentiment?
Well, I don't think that's an accurate description of what he said. I think what the president basically said is that Iran can't have a nuclear weapon because they would use it against places that have a lot of Catholics and Christians and others, for that matter. It goes back to the central point. I think the president, without trying to speak for him, but I think I can characterize it this way. He doesn't understand why anybody, leave aside the Pope, the president, and I, for that matter, I think most people, I cannot understand why anyone would think that it's a good idea for Iran to ever have a nuclear weapon. Look what they're doing with the Straits right now. They're holding the whole world hostage. They have these sailors, on commercial ships that are going to starve to death out there. They don't care. They don't care that this is melting down the economies around the world, even of their own allies. This is what they're doing with the Straits. What do you think they would do if they had a nuclear weapon? They would hold the world hostage with that nuclear weapon. That's what they would do. They would do exactly to the world with a nuclear weapon what they're doing now with the Straits. And I think the president's point is how anyone cannot see that as an unacceptable outcome and an unacceptable risk is beyond him. It's puzzling. And someone has to do something about it. The difference between this president and like the 6 presidents that preceded him were that he's the only one that's actually been willing to do something about it. Everyone says Iran can't have a nuclear weapon, but you got to do something about it at some point. And he's been willing to address that threat. And that's what he promised he would do when he got elected, by the way, is address threats like this. I wish I knew your name,
thank you
guys.
so
I
much,
apologize.
Mr.
Can you put name tags on?
Thank you so much, Mr. Secretary.
Who are you with? Who are you with?
I'm with Rubio Media Network.
Okay.
Mr. Secretary, the President has said multiple times that weapons were provided to the Kurdish groups to pass on the Iranian people. However, Kurdish political parties and the regional government says they have not received such weapons. Even some claim these weapons remain in the U.S. base in the region. Can you clarify who those weapons were given to and whether you intend to retrieve them or still want to pass to the Iranian people?
Yeah, look, ultimately, what the president is expressing, and I think has repeatedly, is he wished the Iranian people had, look, he's heartbroken by these images. You think about it, you're an Iranian, okay? You're unhappy that your economy doesn't work for you. You don't have freedom. You don't have an opportunity to express yourself. You've got friends that have been shot in the head because they're out protesting. And it's heartbreaking to him to see that these people are abused in this way and have no measures to take against their own government as a result of it. By the way, this goes back, if you guys remember the protests in 2009 where they slaughtered people in the street. This is a vicious regime, guys. Okay? These are people that hang people from cranes in the town square so everyone can see. They continue these executions of people and have continue to do so for over a decade and a half now. And so I think what the president is expressing is the desire that he wishes the Iranian people had an ability to fight back against some of these things that are happening to them. And I would view that as distinct and separate from the specifics of this operation that was ongoing before it concluded, and certainly different from the operation that's going on now. Right there
regarding Colombia, regarding Colombia, Mr. Secretary,
right behind you, not Colombia, right there. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Secretary, thank you so much. On Lebanon, are we in a ceasefire or less fire? And the second question, do you think you would be able to achieve an agreement between Lebanon and Israel without risking a civil war in Lebanon? What are you doing to risk? What are you doing to?
No, I got it. I got the gist of your question. So look, here's the challenge with Lebanon. Okay, there's no problem between the Lebanese government and the Israeli government. Israel doesn't claim any land in Lebanon belongs to them, and by and large, I think a peace deal between Lebanon and Israel is imminently achievable and should be. The problem with Israel and Lebanon is not Israel or Lebanon, it's Hezbollah. Hezbollah operates from inside of Lebanese territory. They terrorize and attack Israelis, but they also are inflicting tremendous damage on the Lebanese people. The reason why Lebanon gets attacked by Israel is because of Hezbollah, because Hezbollah is hiding in some house, launching rockets against Israelis, and then they get hit. So what you're seeing now is Israeli responses to either attacks or perceived threats. And this is not new. This has been going on for a very long time. What is our hope? Our hope is to engage the Lebanese and Israeli governments under our mediation at the table to achieve this. And that is having Lebanese armed forces and a Lebanese government, not just with a willingness, but with the capability to begin to challenge Hezbollah and disarm them. Because the Lebanese people are also victims of Hezbollah. And by the way, on the topic of Hezbollah and Lebanon, who is behind Hezbollah? Why do they exist? They're an agent of Iran. If you go through that Middle East and you identify every problem, Hamas, Hezbollah, to some extent the Houthis, obviously, and others, behind every one of these groups is Tehran. So apart from the nuclear weapons, apart from all these other things, these guys are behind all the bad actors. Hezbollah is a wing. It's an extension of Iranian desire to destabilize the region. So we're very committed to this process. It's not going to be easy. You're asking me a complex question. You know this has been going on for a very long time. It's not going to be easy. We're going to do everything we can to make sure that both sides continue to talk so that progress can be made on some sort of permanent ceasefire that isn't constantly spoiled by Hezbollah and by Hezbollah violence. Right in the middle.
Thank you, sir.
I'm winging it, guys, okay? Right there, yes, sir.
You mentioned the 2 U.S. ships that safely crossed the Strait of Hormuz. Are other ships being told it's safer to get back to regular levels, or are we still going to see limits in place for the foreseeable future?
For obvious reasons, I'm not going to broadcast who we're talking to or who we're telling them to move. I mean, we want these operations to be safe, and I think as it unfolds and ships get through, we'll make those announcements after the fact, just for operational security purposes. But the goal here is pretty simple. Establish a zone of transit that is protected by a bubble, the United States, both naval and air assets, and then allow ships who want to move through there and get to market, to begin to increase confidence in the ability to do so. That doesn't happen in 12 hours. It takes time to set up that bubble and gain that confidence, but that's the goal. We have been in touch. We've been in touch, I don't know, with a bunch of different liners about moving, and we're hoping to continue to improve the security situation, and we'll start to see some of that movement, and we'll announce it as it happens after the fact. We're not going to be like broadcasting, hey, tomorrow at 12, ship X is going to be coming through for obvious reasons, because that degrades the security. But we feel confident we're going to be able to achieve that. Look, it's not going to solve the whole Straits problem. It's going to solve a lot of it. But it's important to challenge what Iran is doing now. Guys, again, if you take anything away today, and I can't tell you what to write, but Iran cannot be allowed to normalize this control of the Straits. It's completely unlawful, illegal. It's outrageous. And every country in the world should be joining us and condemning it and doing something about it. But the United States has stepped up and is trying to do something about it.
Regarding regarding Colombia, Mr. Secretary, we've had several tourists.
I'm sorry. We'll see if we get to Colombia today. Go ahead. You guys have an election now. Why don't you wait till after your election?
Mr. Secretary,
Go ahead.
John Michael
Yes,
Ross
sir.
with Daily Mail. I was curious about your meeting with Southcom earlier. There was a picture, a map of Cuba behind you. What did you discuss with Southcom about Cuba? And do you have any updates on?
I'm not going to tell you what I discussed with Southcom.
but it had to do something with Cuba.
No,
What about?
Cuba's in Southcom. You know,
Fair
it's the
enough.
closest part. And so the second point, I was there. Our ambassadors were in from the whole Western Hemisphere. I was addressing them. You know, meeting the general who just took command of Southcom. And there happened to be a map of Cuba. And I said, it'd be good if we took a picture in front of that map because it's like the closest thing in Southcom to the United States. So there it is. We have maps of other countries. Huh?
What about Greenland? Did you update on Greenland?
No, they didn't have that map then. They only had in the red, right there in the red.
In the red, okay. Cristina de Telemundo, Mr. Sec. Can I ask you in Spanish or can I ask
Yeah,
you
you
in
can
both?
answer in Spanish. You
Muchas
can ask me.
gracias.
And they'll have to translate for them what you
So
ask.
I'll say it in English,
Okay.
and if you can answer in both languages. Today I checked the webpage of the State Department, and there's still a $25 million bounty on Diosdado Cabello, the Secretary of Interior, for drug trafficking and narco-terrorism. I was wondering if that has been put on hold, or if you're negotiating with President Delcy Rodriguez to turn him over.
Yeah, I don't have any updates for you on that. The website is what it is, and that's where it stands. That policy hasn't changed. But guys, I mean, let's be mature here a little bit. I'm not going to tell you about what we're talking about with the leader of these countries.
El Departamento de Estado sigue considerando a Diosdado Cabello un narcoterrorista y un narcotraficante, como dice en la página del Departamento de Estado.
La política de Estados Unidos en ese tema no ha cambiado, y cuando cambie te dejaremos saber. The politics of the United States on that, the policy of the United States on that topic hasn't changed. When it does, you know, obviously we'll inform you, but I don't have any news for you on that today. Right there in the green. I'll get to you. Are you guys all the TV people?
Yeah.
All right, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go. I'm learning. They gave me a little map. I don't know where I put it of the people here. Some of you had like red X's. I'm kidding. No, that's not true. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. The average price of gas in the country right now is $4.50. Do you have a thought on how long Americans are supposed to kind of accept this? Do you think it will affect Republicans' majorities in the midterms?
Well, I'm not going to speculate on the politics of it. You can tell me. I mean, look, it's obviously being driven by global events. That was true during the Russia-Ukraine war as well, where you saw that come up. It's look, we don't benefit from the straits as much as other countries. I don't know if you've seen what the gas prices are like in other parts of the world that are really suffering big time. So we're very fortunate that the United States, I believe right now, is like the world's largest net exporter of oil and natural gas as a result, not because of this war, but because we have this capacity. So we've been insulated to some degree. We're obviously still vulnerable to some extent to global prices, and so, but in the end, I mean, we're more insulated than other countries, even though that's not welcome news to Americans that are paying more at the pump, no doubt about it. And it certainly is one of the circumstances of it. There are people that were predicting would be much higher at this point, but we're not taking that for granted. Suffice it to say that think about it this way. Everybody needs to think about it this way. If Iran had a nuclear weapon and they decided to close the straits and make our gas prices like $9 a gallon or $8 a gallon, we wouldn't be able to do anything about it because they have a nuclear weapon. And a nuclear-armed Iran could do whatever the hell they want with the straits, and there's nothing anyone would be able to do about it. And that's one of the many reasons, apart from like the massive loss of life in a nuclear strike, why Iran can never have a nuclear weapon. I mean, so this is an example of if they had a nuclear weapon, they closed the straits and they would tell the world, what are you going to do about it? We have a nuclear weapon. We can attack you with it. That's the world none of us want to leave behind. It won't happen under this president's watch, but some future president and in the future Americans will have to deal with this. So it's just one more example of why these guys can never be allowed to have a nuclear weapon. Right there in the black. Right you in the black. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary.
Where you? No, right there. You both are wearing black.
Thank you.
She's closer. No, you don't have black. You have blue on. I'm colorblind, but I know blue and black.
Thank you so much.
Right there. Yes, ma'am. No, you. The first one I called on.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary.
Thank you. This is chaos, guys. Go ahead.
Welcome to the White House.
You've long been a leading voice on human rights in China, and so including religious persecution and forced organ harvesting. So President Trump prepares to meet Xi Jinping next week. Do you expect human rights concerns to be on the table? Or
Well, we always raise those issues, and they remain true. And I think we've proven in some cases it's most effective to raise them in the appropriate setting. But we always raise those issues. They're important to us, among with others, of course. But those issues remain prominent in our view and in our conversation about these things. And it will continue to raise them in the appropriate forums. All right, let's get to the front. These guys are going to get mad. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Segment Kelly, Associated Press. You mentioned earlier that some countries have privately and publicly indicated their willingness to help with Project Freedom. Can you say how many have reached out to the U.S. With the offers of help, and what kind of capabilities?
Well, thank you for your question. That's a good question. I mean, multiple countries have said we got to do something about it and fix it.
Is it like dozens or single digits or more than 100? Or?
I don't know. I don't put a number on it. I would just tell you that here's what I would say about it. The capabilities is the issue. Okay, a lot of countries would love to do something about it. They don't have a navy. Right, or they can't get there in time, or they can't. Others, are less, that some unfortunately do have a Navy are saying, oh, we'll be involved, but we'll be involved after it's over. Well, after it's over, it's kind of like, that makes sense. So, we'd like to have it. Now, there may be some utility in a post, closure mission. I'm not downplaying that, but I think that's been the challenge. But there are other ways they can help, unique ways that they can help. And I don't want to get into who these countries are for obvious reasons, because they are prepared to help us in certain ways, but maybe don't want that publicly disclosed for no other reason than it impact their foreign policy. It could have some domestic ramifications. But ultimately, I don't want to mislead you. The primary responsibility for this Project Freedom is on the United States, because we're the only country that can project power in that part of the world the way we're doing now. We're the only ones that can do it, and we're going to do it as a favor to the world. Understand this. This is a favor to the world because it's their ships that are stranded. It's their fuel supplies that are stranded. By the way, it's their there's humanitarian aid destined for different countries in the world that's stranded in the Persian Gulf right now. It's the fertilizer that they need for their food and crops that's stranded in the Persian, not our fertilizer, their fertilizer. So we want to be helpful, and that's why the president stepped forward, because we're the only ones that can. Frankly, we're the only ones that can.
Mr. Secretary, on the rising oil and gas prices, the president has said that this is a small price to pay for getting rid of a nuclear weapon. But 10 weeks in, are we any closer to getting rid of Iran's nuclear material?
Yeah, but look, here's the way to think about Iran, and this is what I described at the very beginning of this. What was Iran's plan? You have to understand what their plan was. Their plan was they were going to build this conventional shield where they would have so many thousands of missiles and drones and rockets that they couldn't be attacked. And behind that conventional shield that they were trying to build, they would then break out and do whatever they wanted with their nuclear program. They no longer have that conventional shield. Okay, we told you guys from the very beginning, and we're very consistent in this messaging. The operation that has concluded was going to destroy their Navy. They have no Navy left. They don't. Not a Navy. They have small boats and Boston whalers, but they don't have a Navy left. They don't have an Air Force. I challenge you. When is the last time you read or heard about an Iranian jet flying anywhere? They don't have an Air Force. Their missile launching capability has been substantially degraded, and their industrial base, their defense industrial base, has been severely, severely damaged. So their ability to build a shield behind which they could hide their nuclear program was wiped out. That's a very substantial achievement, and that was the purpose of this operation from day one.
Get their nuclear material in order for this war to end.
Well, that's one of the topics that needs to be discussed. I don't know about. I think you're linking it. The operation is over. Epic Fury, as the president notified Congress, we're done with that stage of it. Okay, we're now on to this Project of Freedom. As far as a negotiation is concerned, I think the president's been clear that part of the negotiation process has to be not just the enrichment, but what happens to this material that's buried deep somewhere that they still have access to if they ever wanted to dig it out. That has to be addressed, and that's being addressed in the negotiation. I'm not going to go further on what progress has been made on that topic because I don't want to endanger the negotiations, but suffice it to say that the president and this entire team is aware of the centrality of that question, and that will have to be addressed one way or the other. Right there. Right there. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Secretary, I have another two-part question for you.
Okay.
First, are you taking part in those negotiations that you just detailed there? And then secondly, President Trump has made it clear that the U.S. doesn't rely on the Strait of Hormuz. So why should Americans even care about Project Freedom and these shipping tankers going through?
Well, I think on the second point is the one I want to address first, and that is why should Americans care and why it matters to us? Because ultimately these things have an impact on the global economy, which ultimately has an impact on our economy in the long term. That's number one. Number two, because if we live in a world where a rogue state like this Iranian regime is allowed to claim as a new normal control of our international shipping lane, it will not be long before you see that happen in multiple shipping lanes around the world. I can identify for you six or seven vital shipping lanes around the world that some countries can decide, guess what, if Iran was able to do it, we're going to do it too. We're not going to start charging tolls. And it'll get closer and closer to us. That's unacceptable. We cannot live in a world. There's a lot of time and energy been invested behind the idea that international waters are free for the free flow of goods. The stuff we make in this country and export has to go through international shipping lanes. And for us to live in a world where a country can decide, now we own the international shipping lane and you have to pay us if you want to use it, that is a normal that we will never be able to accept. And that's what the Iranians are trying to get us to do. So we're doing two things about it, and we haven't talked about the second one enough. The second thing we're doing is we're going to the UN. Everybody loves the UN, right? We're trying to go to the UN, and we're saying, okay, countries of the world, condemn this. Say that it is wrong for you to put mines there. It is wrong for you to shoot at commercial vessels. Guys, that's what we're talking about here. These guys are bombing commercial vessels. They're not bombing naval vessels. They're bombing commercial tankers. It's just outrageous. That needs to stop, and it needs to end. And if it doesn't, then the world should be diplomatically and economically isolating Iran as well. But if we live in a world where global shipping lanes can be taken over by countries, that'll have a direct impact on Americans in the short and the long term, and we can't let it start by Iran doing it. And we're the only ones that can do anything about it. All right. Right there in the green. Go ahead. Yes.
Mr. Secretary, does the president intend to press Beijing on its Taiwan policy when he visits China next week?
I'm sure Taiwan will be a topic of conversation. It always is. As you know, we understand the Chinese understand our position on that topic. We understand theirs. And I think both parties, without getting ahead of myself of what will happen in the talks, but I think both countries understand that it is neither one of our interests to see anything destabilize happen in that part of the world. We don't need any destabilizing events to occur with regards to Taiwan or anywhere in the Indo-Pacific. And I think that's to the mutual benefit of both the United States and the Chinese.
Hey, Kara Castanova from Lindell TV. Thank you for taking my question today. How does the State Department...
What happened? Why is everybody giggling? What happened? You guys... Oh. I'm sorry. Are they mean
Kara
to you?
No, they're not mean.
Oh, okay.
I don't think they are. I hope not. But I'm Kara from Lindell TV, and nice to ask you a question today, sir. How does the State Department interpret the president's recent remarks when he said, quote, the Iranian people need to have guns, and I think they are getting some guns, end quote. What did he mean, and do those comments relate to any ongoing or potential U.S. actions like supplying those weapons?
Well, I think it goes back to the question I was asked a moment ago. I think the president thinks it's heartbreaking that the Iranian people are abused by this regime the way they are. In the end, I mean, this regime is not... Guys, I know I've said this. I think I said this in my hearing before the Senate when I got confirmed. I don't know of any country in the world where there's a bigger difference between the people and the people who run the country. Okay, this country is run by radical Shia clerics. And that's not what Iran and the Iranian people are. Now, they may be Shia, but they're not radicals and they're not clerics, and they just want a normal life and a regular life, and in many ways a very cosmopolitan country with an incredible history and incredible legacy and the like. So there's this huge divide between the people of Iran, whom we sympathize with, and who the president sympathizes with, because they're the ones suffering. Look, the world is a victim of Iran, okay? The world is a victim of Iran because they're terrorists, because of what they're doing now in the Straits. But the people of Iran are daily victims of the regime, and the president has deep sympathy for what they're going through. And I think he's just expressing that sympathy and that frustration that they don't have the ability to do more to get rid of this regime that has crushed this country and isolated it from the world, which is a country that shouldn't be isolated from the world because its people are phenomenal. All right. I wish I had like a dice. Go ahead. Yeah. No, right there, because I'm going to Italy. Voy a Italia. Déjame hablar con el señor. Okay. He's Italian. I know him. He used to cover Capitol Hill. You're Italian, right?
For many years.
For many years.
Yeah,
okay.
Daniele Papatangelo. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. So I have two short questions for you.
Oh, damn, two questions.
First, as you head to the Vatican and Italy, how do you view the Pope's global role amid current geopolitical shift? And what are your objectives in Italy? Is this trip tied to recent remarks by the president suggesting Italy has not been supported as expected? And the second one is about the Hezbollah in Lebanon. On a recent interview on Fox News, you raised some concern about stronger vetting within the Lebanese armed forces. What do you make? Can you elaborate a little bit?
Yeah, I've answered the first one about the Vatican. Look, I mean, the Pope is obviously the vicar of Christ, is a Roman Catholic, but he's also the head of a nation state, and it's an organization that has a presence in over 100-something countries around the world. And we engage with the Vatican quite a bit because they're present in many different places. I've already outlined to you two examples. We worked with the Catholic Church on the distribution of humanitarian aid in Cuba. We share with the Catholic Church a concern about the destruction of religious liberty, the persecution of Christian minorities, and also, the challenges that are being faced by Christians in Africa, where the Pope just recently visited. So we have a lot to talk about with them, and I engage with them quite a bit on that front. So the trip is really not tied to anything other than the fact that it would be normal for us to engage with them, and other Secretary of States have done that in the past. On the second point about Lebanon, also a question that was asked earlier. What was the Italian part?
About the expectation that the president.
Oh, no, look, I mean, the Italians have been involved for some time in training the police and in training their forces, so we'd love to hear their input on it. And in the way, look, we welcome everybody's help eventually. What has to happen in Lebanon, what everybody wants to see, is that you have a Lebanese government with the capability to go after Hezbollah and take the Hezbollah apart. There shouldn't be a Hezbollah and a government. There should be a government. Everyone should fold underneath it. And if we do that, then there'll be peace between Israel and Lebanon. But we have to build the capacity of the Lebanese to do it. And I think Italy could be helpful in that regard. All right. Did I call on you already? You already got a question? In the green? Did I call on you already?
No.
Okay, all right. Go ahead.
You mentioned the UN resolution that
Yes.
you announced today. Can you talk about what the goal is with that resolution? And there was a similar one last month that was vetoed by China and Russia. You spoke to the Russian foreign minister. Do you have an assurance that Russia will be on board with this now?
Well, we don't know. Yeah, look, I mean, everyone wouldn't want to see this vetoed again, and then we've made some slight adjustments to the language, but I don't know if it'll avoid a veto or not, but the language isn't very complicated. And I think it's a real test for the UN, right? As a function, as something that functions that can solve global problems. What is the purpose of the UN? The UN was supposed to be a place where you could peacefully resolve global conflict. Right now you have a country who is unlawfully, criminally, and illegally taking possession of an international waterway and blowing up commercial vessels and putting mines in the water. I don't know if people appreciate like how outrageous this is, how unacceptable it is that any country would fire and try to sink commercial vessels or put mines in the water. Both of these things are illegal. And so we're going to take it to the UN, and we're going to give it another chance to be a forum in which we're not even asking people to like commit troops to the region and help blow up the Iranian boats. All we're asking them to do is to condemn it, to call on Iran to stop blowing ships, to remove these mines, and to allow humanitarian relief to come through because there's humanitarian aid that's trapped. That's it. This is a very modest request. And if you're telling me that the international community and hundreds of countries cannot rally behind that, then I don't know what the utility of the UN system is if it can't even solve something as straightforward as that. And I think to both the Chinese and the Russians, I would argue and have argued that it is in their interest for that resolution to pass and for pressure to be brought on Iran, because it is in their interest not to see international waterways, including the Straits of Hormuz, be closed down and cause economic chaos to dozens and dozens of countries around the world. Okay. Back row, yellow tie. Back row,
Secretary,
yeah.
CBN News, you've had a deep faith for God and country. At the end of the day, with all that you've been involved in,
keep going.
You've been extremely busy.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
As we all know. I got to ask you, what is your hope for America at a time such as this?
My hope for America?
And how do
the
you
same as always
personally
been.
deal with that?
Yeah, look, I mean, my hope for America is what it's always been. I think it's the hope I hope we all share. We want it to continue to be the place where anyone from anywhere can achieve anything, where you're not limited by the circumstances of your birth, by the color of your skin, by your ethnicity, but frankly, it's a place where you are able to overcome challenges and achieve your full potential. I think that should be the goal of every country in the world, frankly, but I think in the U.S., we're not perfect. Our history is not one of perfection, but it's still better than anybody else's history, and ours is a story of perpetual improvement. Each generation has left the next generation of Americans freer, more prosperous, safer, and that is our goal as well. But it is a unique and exceptional country, and as we come upon this 250-year anniversary, I think we have a lot to learn and be proud of in our history. It is one of perpetual and continuous improvement, where each generation has done its part to bring us closer to fulfilling the vision that the founders of this country had upon its founding. So, thank you. All right. I have time for two more questions. All right, right there in the pink. No, you right there. That lady. No, the one right next to you in the pink. No, the pink. I'm sorry, but I pointed at her. I need to get a laser pointer and just go. Now you in the pink jacket, the lady right there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Secretary. I have a question on Iran-China relations.
Okay.
What's your reaction to Iranian foreign minister visit to China? Also, Beijing instructed its firms to ignore U.S. sanctions. Could you also address that?
Well, I'll direct you to Treasury on that front. There are options that we have. If you ignore our sanctions, you're going to face secondary sanctions. And I don't have an announcement for you on that today, but we don't do these things, for symbolic purposes. On the first point about the visit, it's fine. I hope the Chinese tell him what he needs to be told, and that is that what you are doing in the Straits is causing you to be globally isolated. You're the bad guy in this. You guys should not be blowing up ships. You should not be putting mines. You should not be trying to hold hostage the global economy. I hope the Chinese bring, whether it's done privately, but I hope it's done directly, that's the message they deliver to them. As I outlined earlier today, China is an export-driven economy. Okay, I'm not here to speak on behalf of what's in the best interest of China, but it's obvious. China is an export-driven economy. That means they depend on other countries to buy from them. Well, you can't buy from them if you can't ship it there, and you can't buy from them if your economy is being destroyed by what Iran is doing. So it is in China's interest that Iran stop closing the straits. It's harming China as well. The gentleman in the red tie, right there. Yes, I'm sorry, what's your name?
Liz Landers with PBS NewsHour.
Okay.
Another question about the China-Iran relationship. You said at the beginning of your comments at the top that every single financial situation will be targeted. Does that include Chinese banks? Would the president sanction
We're going to enforce our sanctions.
Chinese banks
I don't
before
have an announcement for you. That will have to come from Treasury. But we have sanctions in place. And sanctions don't mean anything unless, you're going to do something about them. So I think that's been clear. I think that, the Treasury will follow up with any specific announcements. Suffice it to say, we're serious about our sanctions. Then a cost needs to be imposed on Iran for what they are doing. Otherwise, if they get away with this, guys, if they get away with pulling this thing off without paying a price for it and backing down, you're going to see multiple places around the world where other countries are going to be tempted to do the same. This is unacceptable. Again, I want to reiterate the point. We keep arguing back and forth about the war and the shooting and this and that and the other. These guys are shut down an international waterway. The Straits of Hormuz do not belong to Iran. They don't have a right to shut it down and blow up ships and lay mines. And that's what they've done. That needs to be addressed. Otherwise, and it cannot be normalized. Under no circumstances can we live in a world where we accept, okay, this is normal. You have to coordinate with Iran. You have to pay them a toll in order to go through the Straits of Hormuz. Not only is that unacceptable in the Straits, you're creating a precedent that could be repeated in multiple other places around the world. The whole world should join us in this condemnation, and the whole world should join us in doing something about it, by the way. It shouldn't just be us. We're hoping to get countries. We're going to give them a chance to do something about it at the United Nations. All right, my last question. All right, that lady in the right there in the white.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary.
Right next time, we'll Secretary. Thank you. Okay, hold on, stop this up. Go ahead. Okay, I'll do two more, and then I gotta go. Yeah, go ahead. Iran has shown what? Okay.
Iran has shown that it's been able to withstand a lot of pressure. And yesterday, President Trump has said that they may run out of oil storage in 2 weeks. Do you believe that that will be the thing that gets them to the table to give up their nuclear ambitions? And if not, what will be that thing?
Well, look, they're suffering devastating damage to their economy. You're right, but it's not that they're able to withstand pressure. It's that they don't care that their people are suffering. You understand, right? There's a difference between we can withstand pressure and we actually don't care. Now, I think there are people in their system that care more than others. Some of the elected people that you see, some of the people you see on television with the suits on, those guys care because they know at the end of the day they have to live in the reality. And then you have another element of their government, the clerics, the IRGC types, who probably are more immune to that and care less. They're more interested in regime survival at all costs. But ultimately, the pressure points are what they are.
They divided now than they were before because the administration has said that the Iranian regime is divided, making it very challenging.
Well, it's been challenging to deal with them diplomatically because, for example, an offer will be made and then it takes 5 or 6 days to get a response because you have to get it through the whole system. They have to find the supreme leader wherever he hides. They got to get him to sign off, and that's their system. Their system has always been multi-layered in this way. It's obviously become more complex because of the damage they suffered during the war. But look, suffice it to say, Iran has to pay a price. They're not going to change their position out of the kindness of their heart. There has to be a pressure point on them that causes them to realize they cannot continue to close the straits, or they face crushing economic consequences, but also, global diplomatic isolation. Which they have proven in the past to be susceptible to. But you're right, they have a high pain threshold, but they don't have an unlimited pain threshold. Nobody does. All right, this has to be the last question. Go ahead.
Mr. Secretary, many people want to know, what is your DJ name?
My DJ name?
Your DJ name.
You're not ready for my DJ name.
On the war, if the fighting were to resume, because you've said that Operation Epic Fury is over, the president also said that the U.S. would bomb them off the face of the earth if they tried to go after U.S. ships. So if the fighting resumes, are you saying that it would resume under Project Freedom? And I ask, as it relates to the War Powers Act.
Yeah, look, the Operation Epic Fury is concluded. we achieved the objectives of that operation. I'm not going to, we're not cheering for an additional situation to occur. We would prefer the path of peace. What the president would prefer is a deal. He would prefer to sit down, work out a memorandum of understanding for future negotiations that touches on all the key topics that have to be addressed, a full opening of the strait so the world can get back to normal. He preferred that be negotiated through the route that Steve and Jared have been working and that all of us have been supporting. That's the route he prefers. That is so far not the route that Iran has chosen. And so the result has been that the United States has to do something about the fact that we're the only nation on earth that can do anything to open up a lane within the Straits of Hormuz to get product and to rescue these people that are trapped in there. And that's what we're undergoing now. What that may lead to in the future is speculative. I'm not going to speculate about what it would take or what it would do. But look, the message to Iran, these guys are facing, they are facing real catastrophic destruction to their economy, generational destruction to their economy, generational destruction to the wealth of their country, imposed on themselves by the actions that they're taking. They should check themselves before they wreck themselves in the direction that they're going.
Does the White House believe that these votes coming up in Congress are a moot point then?
Look, guys, I love talking about this topic. It's about the War Powers Act.
Yeah.
Okay, I love it. I was hoping somebody would ask. All right, hold on. No, boy, you don't let me answer. I got to answer the question. Okay, and I love it. I'll tell you why I love it. Because even as a senator, I said something. The War Powers Act is unconstitutional, 100%. Now, this is not the position of me, it's not the position of the President of the United States now. This is the position of every single president that has occupied this position since the day that law passed. It's completely unconstitutional. Now, we comply with it in terms of like notification because we want to preserve good relations with Congress, right? And we do that. But even as a senator, I would say that the War Powers Act is 100% unconstitutional. And look, I know some of you, whatever you want to say, but this is not this president's position. That has been the position of every single presidential administration since the day that law passes. An infringement on the president's constitutional powers. We don't acknowledge the law as constitutional. Nonetheless, we comply with elements of it for purposes of maintaining, good relations with Congress. And we want them to be involved and we want them to be informed. I have gone on Capitol Hill, 4 times this year for all senators and all House members and Intel Committee and Gang of 8. We want them to be involved in this, but I want to be clear on the point of the War Powers Act. It's unconstitutional, and every president and every administration has taken that position. All right, guys, I gave you 50 minutes. Thank you, guys. Thank
you. There you go, Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, as he just said there, 50 minutes of a press conference. A lot of news in that press conference, a lot of serious topics, of course, but on a lighter note, some of the quotes that we saw that we heard from Marco Rubio, including, I wish I had a laser pointer to vote, not to vote, but to pick on whoever would be speaking there at the press conference. He also said, you better check yourself before you wreck yourself. Now, that's a little bit out of context. I believe that was about Iran. And then, you're not ready for my DJ name. So, interesting stuff there, but at the end of the day, a great job as it looked like he enjoyed himself as we are live right now on Right Side Broadcasting Network. Now, the official logo for Donald J. Trump International Airport has been released by Eric Trump on X and Truth. There it is. Airport code will be DJT. So if you're flying from, let's see, LGA, which is LaGuardia Airport in New York, it'd be LGA to DJT. Pretty cool stuff. So that PBI, where it was West Palm Beach International Airport, is now Donald J. Trump International Airport. Also, minutes after that, the president on Truth Social posted this. Instead of ICE, there it's nice now. So National Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Now we know the president posts a lot on Truth Social. Is this the official logo of NICE? Who knows? But he posted that right after the DJT logo for Donald J. Trump International Airport. Those are posts that happened within the past 30 minutes. This broadcast brought to you by some great sponsors, including MyPillow.com/RSBN. MyPillow.com/RSBN. The warehouse moving sale, you can save up to 80% right now. Some great products there. If you'd like to donate to Right Side Broadcasting Network, all you have to do is go to rsbnetwork.com/donate. rsbnetwork.com/donate. Also, in the donation side of things, my brother-in-law, John Hoffman, who was on the broadcast earlier, if you missed it, all you have to do is scrub back a bit. Well, he is going to go on a cycle. He's going to ride on a bicycle from coast to coast. Virginia all the way to Oregon. It's all for a good cause. It's all for St. Jude's Children's Hospital. There's a QR code on that interview. And I saw that some people already donated. The QR code goes directly to St. Jude's. You can see the website there. And it's part of his fundraising campaign that's happening. So if you'd like to do that, as soon as this wraps up, which is literally going to be in about 20 seconds from now, if you would like to donate and towards St. Jude's, go ahead and scrub back a bit. You'll see the QR code pop up there on the screen while I was interviewing John just about an hour ago. Feel free to not only give to RSBN if you'd like to donate, and also to St. Jude's here on Right Side Broadcasting Network. And for all of us on RSBN, I'm Matthew Alvarez. We'll see you again soon, as we're just getting started. It's only Tuesday, May 5th. A lot of news, I'm sure, as it unfolds. We'll cover it. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you again soon.